Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Kristen. I'm the Integro webinar moderator. For those of you new to Integro, we have a monthly webinar series. We do 30-minute webinars once a month. And this month, I have with me Chris McHenry. He is the VP of Technology here at Integro, and he is going to be presenting on modern email management in the cloud, featuring Integro Email Manager and Box. A few quick heads up before Chris starts presenting. We have a couple polling questions for you guys today, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for those. There's 2 questions Chris will be asking throughout the webinar. And second is, if you have any questions at any point, Chris, just ask them in the sidebar and we'll answer those at the end. So without any further ado, I will let Chris take it away.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to get to talk to you about email management and featuring our Integro Email Manager product. I run the product group at Integro, so my team develops and maintains and supports the product, and I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been working on email management for the past decade, and I think now more than ever, this is an important topic for organizations to consider. So with that, our agenda today, I'm going to hit on the challenges that we see customers facing with email management. I'm going to talk about how we've attempted to overcome those challenges with our product, Integro Email Manager, and our expertise in this area. And then finally, hit on the benefits of Integro or email management in the cloud, and take your questions and answers. So with that, let's dive in. I want to start off, Kristen, if you could present the poll. I'm going to start off with a question for you all to see what your interests are in email management. So you should have on your screen, if you could take a moment, read the responses. What are your most pressing needs related to email management? Got a couple of different options there. If you could take a look and pick the most important for your organization. And we'll wait a few minutes here, or a few seconds rather. And Kristen,
I'll just a few more votes. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds so we get a good majority of the folks.
We'll be sharing the results.
Close the poll and share the results for you, Chris. Chris, can you see the results on your screen?
See here, polling results. I can indeed. Do those go on the screen?
Yes, so the audience can see the results right now.
Okay, great. So legal and regulatory, not surprising, that is a big driver of email management. We also have some interest in supporting your business processes, which is something I'm really interested in terms of the direction of our product going forward. And we're doing some of that with a few customers today. And then information security and data loss prevention, again, a growing area. So, and then storage costs, of course. Interesting to hear what you all have in terms of your needs there around email management. So hopefully we'll hit on what's important to you today. So I'm going to talk a little bit. So you may think email management is not a huge problem, and I'm here to rebut that idea. I gathered a few statistics. The first 3 here from the Radicati Group. They're a well-known research organization and do a lot of work around gathering statistics and metrics around email, particularly in a corporate or organizational setting. So they've found that over 125 or over 124 billion emails are sent per day. This is in 2018, and it's growing at a healthy clip. By the way, 5 to 10%. And there are approximately 2.8 billion email users. This is not mailboxes, but individual users of email. So email is obviously ubiquitous in our organizations and our environment today. So typically, the typical business user receives approximately 76 legitimate emails, not spam or junk email, but legitimate business emails per day. Do a little bit of math on that. It doesn't take long to realize how much time we invest in email. hours spent by the average user per week. McKinsey did a study. This is an aged study. It's in 2012, but McKinsey estimated around a third of our week is spent in email, so 13 hours a week. That's a significant portion of our time each week and each year. So obviously a lot of investment, a lot of cost in terms of using our email. So email is an obviously important business communication tool. That's obvious, but some of the costs come into play. We mentioned e-discovery as a big driver. This is an older statistic, and it could have gone up since then, but back in 2010, there was a conference and a consortium that put together some studies of average organizations. This is not just the large organizations, but a typical business typically spends $3.5 million per litigation case on e-discovery. So obviously, email is a big factor in that, gathering emails related to their responsive to that litigation. Likewise, data breach costs a company $3.6 million, so roughly the same amount of money to respond to a data breach. And email is also a big driver of data loss in those breaches. So there's a significant part of the cost equation in reducing these costs related to email management. So a lot of the pundits out there saying email's going away, and obviously those stats hopefully rebut that. I think it's growing ever more important. We're obviously using other tools to collaborate, and some of this discussion and so forth is going out of email, but more and more email is continuing to be a bedrock of communications in our organization. So why do people find email management so challenging? This is some of the things that we've heard from our customers over the years of working with them around email management. The first is a big one, and it gets harder as you work in larger and growing organizations. You have to bring multiple parties to the table and get consensus on your approach to email management. And each of those has a little different needs in terms of their goals for email management. For instance, your legal group needs to support discovery, and they need to implement defensible policies across the organization. IT, they want to keep email running. They want to keep their costs low and their storage costs down. Finance, they want to maximize your ROI on the project. And business, they just want to support their business goals and don't want email to get in their way. So they don't want to be slowed down by the email management initiatives there. So you got some different, competing interests there that you have to kind of reconcile. And with our product, we really try to address all those needs kind of holistically. We've taken them all into account, so it makes it easier. And maybe in a smaller organization, you only have one or two, maybe a senior leader in legal and the CEO that would drive an email management project, for instance, but you still have these different needs. A common refrain is our users will never get on board, and typically that's because we're asking them to do a lot of extra work, or we're changing their behavior, interrupting their email workflow. So we don't want to do that. And again, we try not to do that in our product, and hopefully you'll get the sense that we do a really good job of making it easy for the user. We tried this and failed. Largely, that's a result of the previous 2 points and potentially some change management, technology issues, or sometimes an issue there. But largely, it's not involving the user, not getting the right people to the table to agree on this solution. We need all those old emails. Well, you don't need them all. You need some of them, and you need to keep them to do your job, and some of them need to be kept for the right amount of time according to your organizational policies. But you don't need them all, and in fact, you don't need many of them. We're just too busy and just too much email, right? We're just overwhelmed by the problem, I think, is this challenge here. And I think not addressing the problem just makes it worse. So we need to dig in and find a solution, right? So with that, I want to know what your planned or current approaches to email management might be. We're going to take another poll here for just a moment. So if you take a minute, think about the options here. They range from do nothing to keep everything. I want to see what you guys are thinking in terms of email management in your organization. So Kristen, could you open up the poll?
Yes, so the poll is now live, guys. You can vote now. Awesome. I'll give them just a couple more seconds. You guys are voting very, very quickly. Thank you.
It's fun to see the little dashboards, kind of like Ernst & Young, tabulating the results here. It's cool.
Awesome. I'm going to close down those results and share with the audience. Can you see the responses, Chris?
Yeah. So
awesome.
Wow, this is an impressive statistic. So 62% are deleting email according to a records retention schedule. So I applaud you for that. That's what we want to be doing, or you intend to do that. So that's great. Glad to hear it. Keep only what we need. Again, another big result here. And then retain everything in your archive. And we're currently not planning anything. So hopefully I can change some directions there. We'll see. But let me comment on some of these options here. So saving everything forever, and that typically takes the form of journaling your email or saving everything in your email system. It has some drawbacks associated with it. Obviously, all that information takes up storage, and it continues to grow at a almost exponential rate over time. That leads to manageability problems and so forth. And additionally, when you get into discovery or regulatory concerns, gathering those emails to be responsive to those issues is very challenging and costly. So that's a difficult strategy. Setting arbitrary quotas for all your users. So this is what I talked about earlier. In this case, I've seen companies attempt to do this where they say you only get a 100 megabyte quota in your email, and that puts the user on that little hamster wheel of trying to stay within that quota and constantly reviewing and deleting stuff and deciding what to keep and not to keep and how to work around the system and everything else. So not the way you want to do, you want your business users to spend their time managing their email that way. That's a little bit getting into their workflow. One auto delete policy for all emails. So let's treat it all the same and delete it after some period of time. It might be a short period of time, 60, 90 days. It might be a longer period of time. It depends, but I tend to see more of the short period of time in companies that are adopting this policy. And that, again, makes it hard for users to comply, and they find workarounds and whatnot. And then doing nothing, I think it's becoming less and less practical to do that. And some of the reasons we see are, you're hearing about some of the security breaches and the content that's found in email, and it's difficult to let that information out. Sometimes, as information ages, it loses its context, obviously, and so it's not a good idea to keep around everything and potentially be breached and have that exposed. Then you hear about about obviously the Enron scandals and whatnot, and then, as I mentioned earlier, lawsuits are constantly on the rise, and the bigger an organization gets, the bigger target they are. So unfortunately, that just adds to a lot of the cost and time and effort in being responsive to these legal matters. So a lot of these approaches have negative repercussions. What we're going to present to you today is more what we consider a more modern approach to email management. And it kind of starts off with the bedrock of our approach, delete by default. So don't have to do anything as a user. The content just goes away. However, there's some stuff that you do need to keep around according to your organizational policies. And these little red emails or records of the organization, they're by far the fewest in the group in the total. And a little bit of work has to be done to indicate what type of record they are, for example. And we can keep those on a different interval. And then some of the email we want to keep around to do our job, right? We're working on projects. We're working on different initiatives. Perhaps we're a process worker, we're claims agent or something like that, where we have to keep this email for some period of time to do our job. We don't need to keep it forever, but some period of time. And maybe it's longer than the most. So delete by default just gets rid of the rest of the stuff by default. And then over time, we start to get rid of some of this other content that loses value as time moves on. And the records go away according to your corporate policies. So to make that even easier, we've introduced a feature in our product called SmartAssist, and our tagline for that feature is called Auto Classification with Human Oversight. So not pure, AI watching your email, taking all the action. It's kind of harmonious between the user and the SmartAssist functionality. But the way it works is the user may tag an email, for instance, and the SmartAssist can be trained to learn from that. And it takes over and tags the majority of them. And then occasionally you have a few that the user has to correct or tag themselves. So over time, the burden of tagging those records goes away effectively, and the rest of the stuff goes away according to the deletion intervals you set up in the product. So that's auto classification with human oversight. I'm going to demo that heavily. We view the mailbox in what we call 3 zones. We have a trademark approach to email management we call zone management. In the vast majority of email, 80%, or if you remember back the 76 emails you get a day, that would be 60 of those emails is transient or should be auto-deleted. So it's just a waste of time, it takes up storage and increases your risk. So let's just get rid of it, and fairly quickly. You read it, it has no value after the time you read it. So let's get rid of it appropriately. 15% has some value for you, and you need to keep it around to do your job. So you need to keep it around for, maybe a year or maybe more. Your organization can define that, but 15% falls into that, and that's 11 out of those 76 emails. So again, a little bit less than the transient. And then finally, the fewest grouping is the records, and those are the things that need to be kept according to the organizational policies. And that's 4 of those 76 emails. So very few per day would be have to be flagged. And then with SmartAssist, we hope to get that down to 0 that the user has to deal with. So again, we're focused on the user, helping it make it automatic, easy, and easy to be compliant. Our solution can be deployed in a couple different options. So we fully support Office 365. We run our product. We have a server capability that does all this management in terms of deletion and so on and so forth, archiving in some cases to a repository. And that server runs in the cloud. We set it up, manage it, patch it, so on and so forth for your organization and charge as a subscription. So it runs alongside your Office 365 in the cloud. We also have 2 kind of flavors of how you treat those records. You can either govern them in place in your mailbox, or you can move them to a records repository. And the one that we've been seeing a lot of interest in lately, and we're pretty excited about it at Integro, is box.com. It's a cloud content management platform, ranked #1 by Gartner in that category, and we're seeing a lot of customer interest in it, and our product works well with Box. I'm going to show you how that works today. The other flavor is your on-premise. So if you're still running Exchange on-premise or Domino on-premise, you can certainly work it with that environment as well. And again, you get that same 2 kind of options for treating your records either in place or moving them to a records repository. So hopefully you can see that it's pretty light touch in terms of how it integrates with Exchange or Domino, and works right in conjunction with your current strategy. So how easy is the product to use? So this is the important part for those end users. I'm going to do a live demo here in my Outlook. Oh, and I didn't set up my demo. Come on. I gotta get into a different account. Sorry about this. So I'm gonna launch my Outlook here, and give me a second to get that up. This is an Office 365 mailbox I'm gonna open. So I'm gonna go into my demo user, Jay Green. Hopefully the Outlook interface is familiar to you. If you're using Outlook and Exchange, Office 365, it's no different. What you're going to see is just a couple slight differences. We've added this little ribbon on the left here of the inbox, and that gives the user tools to manage their mailbox with that tagging that I talked about. And then on the right, you see the different icons that have shown up here in the mailbox, and that just gives them a visual indicator as to how a message has been tagged. So if I slide out the pane, I'm just going to pin it down to make it easy for me here. So I can see I get this designation pane where SmartAssist, in this case, has picked up this email. It's a job submittal from a recruiter, and it's tagged it into the human resources category. It's 96% confident that that was human resources, so it did a really good job of detecting the content in the email. It's not rules-based. It's looking at the content and saying this content is very likely to be human resources. So we're doing natural language processing on it. We're understanding the content and categorizing it appropriately. The SmartAssist did that for me. I didn't have to do anything. Just as the email came into my mailbox, it flagged it for me. Down here, the gold star, that indicates that SmartAssist wasn't quite so confident. It was 74% confident as a product. So it needs me to take a look at it. And yeah, sure enough, it is a product, so I can go ahead and click on it. And one click, I make it a record. And, you know, some stuff about SQL scripts is now in the product category here. So you notice it has a teal check mark to indicate I did that manually myself. And here's another one of those options. We can also select multiple emails in place, and we can flag them, for instance, in that work in progress zone. So we need to keep these around, perhaps to do a project. And another option that we have is drag and drop. So I can say this e-discovery email goes into my, let's say, IT records, for example. And if I go to that folder, you can see it has the teal check mark. It's automatically categorized. And if we look at it, right click on the folder here, you can see that there's a new menu option, IEM designation. You can open that up and see that the email inherited that folder profile onto the email automatically. So it makes it super easy just to set up my own folders any way I want. There's no predefined folder structure or anything like that. And the system just lets the user use their mail the way they're typically accustomed to using it and works with them. So let me go back to my inbox here. I want to hit on another key point. I mentioned manage your records in a repository. I'm going to show this particular record here. It's some techie jargon from me and my development team. This one has been flagged as a product record, and it's been flagged as an archive copy. So that means that our servers picked up the email that's been declared a record and moved it over to the repository. In this case, I'm going to show you box.com. So we have a repository set up in box.com. It's basically a folder structure that mirrors our file plan categories that I showed you in the designation pane. And if we drill into that and drill into that product, and it's actually stored by mailbox in this case, we can go in here and we can find the email that was archived. And you can see you can actually, pretty cool, you can preview it right in Box. You can open it up so that it opens up in your Outlook mailbox. A lot of functionality here. You can also search across your repository. You can search the files and folders, makes it really handy to share the information. You can also share it out, control the security on it. All of this kind of ECM-like functionality you might expect from a content management repository. If you have box governance, you can actually set up retention on each of these categories with box governance so that the records will be deleted according to their retention schedule. And things like Box Relay, you can actually drive the content into a workflow you define with Box Relay. So there's a lot of functionality in Box. If you're looking for a cloud content management system, I highly recommend you check it out. And it's certainly a good option for managing your email that you want to get out of the mailbox so you can discover it and manage the retention appropriately. So going back to my inbox, I want to show you one last thing in email here. I mentioned that everything goes away, gets auto-deleted. So we have a tool here to help the user kind of get visibility into that. And it also helps them manage that space-controlled zone, because you can set up the quotas on the space-controlled zone, and they can, manage the content within that zone here in the dashboard. I'm going to focus on the auto-delete. So for instance, if I'm going out of office on spring break, for example, I might want to come in here to the 7-day view and drill into these emails, see what's going to be deleted while I'm gone. And a lot of jokes, those should be deleted, right? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Happy birthday and so forth. We can either declare those as records, we can put them into our work in progress zone, or just let them be deleted. So we have some nice tools to help the user manage their email according to these 3 zones. So to jump back to the presentation, I want to kind of wrap things up here fairly quickly. We're getting down to the bottom of the half hour. And so some of our customers have reported some of their ROI metrics to us. Obviously, they're not public who they are, but these are some of the things that they found implementing email management with our product. In one case, the customer reduced their email volume by 85%, so 8 terabytes in our particular case, just by deleting that transient email initially and then work in progress over time. And what we see is that our customers' storage growth with email tends to level off. In the typical cases, it goes up, like I said, in many cases exponentially. And with the usage of our product, it tends to level off. And of course, if you add users, it goes up relative to that. But in terms of growth as a whole, you tend to get more of a flatline type of growth at some level. Another customer found they saved $2 million in litigation savings per year. So that's the gift keeps giving, right? And that's around $120,000 per case that they're saving in their environment. Another customer saw a 15 terabyte reduction in their archive storage. So again, that long-term storage can be costly. Another benefit of this, kind of related to the storage, is it gives you a lot of agility to move this content around. If you've got 15 terabytes of content, it's time consuming and onerous to move around, and Integro does a lot of that for customers, and they're expensive projects, honestly. So the more you control the growth of the content storage, there's other related benefits in terms of your agility and avoidance of lock-in and things like that. So bear that in mind as well. And then, of course, there are other productivity benefits and so forth related. They're somewhat more intangible. So with parting thoughts here, so hopefully you got the sense that we advocate keeping only the email that has value to your organization. Keep it for the right amount of time. Don't just treat it all the same, because there is a need to treat it differently for various regulatory purposes. There's also a need for business purposes. So keep it for the right amount of time. Keep it organized so you can get some value out of this content. We're spending so much time in email. Let's leverage it and derive some value from it. Don't disrupt your users. So hopefully you've seen that our tool is easy to use, doesn't get involved in the user's workflow. And then with the cloud, you can greatly accelerate your time to market. Within a couple of weeks, we can get you up and running in our cloud environment, and that will generate a lot greater ROI for you. And then finally, we always send out a link to the recording so you can share the recording of this webinar in your organization. But keep an eye out for this email that we're going to send out in the next week. We're going to include an offer for y'all. Hopefully you'll take advantage of it to kind of leverage some of our expertise in email management in your organization and get some value out of our product, hopefully. So look for that. And with that, I am open for questions. So let me find the widget here, Kristen? Or are you going to read them to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have some questions, guys. I will say at the 30-minute mark, we'll go over a few minutes so Chris can answer your questions. Quick reminder, there is a survey that will pop up once we close out of GoToWebinar. It has 2 questions for you, just about how we did and what you want to hear about next from Integro. So Chris, let me give you your questions. First question for you. Can I run Integro Email Manager on-premise?
Yes, absolutely you can. So in that case, you'd have to provide your own hardware, but it's super easy to get up and running on-prem, and we fully support that.
Awesome. Always love the easy questions. Do you work with any other ECM? Yeah. Second question. Do you work with any other ECM repositories and/or email archiving solutions? Yeah,
so we actually have quite a bit of capability here. We do a lot of work on-prem with IBM and FileNet. We've worked with some customers with Oracle, and have some things go in the works around Enterprise Vault. So we have a capability that's pretty agnostic to the archiving and the repository that can be brought to bear to work with whatever your organization might be using internally. So yes, we have a wide variety of support for different repositories and archiving solutions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone on the line, for participating with us today with polls and asking your questions. Our next webinar will be next month. Keep your eyes peeled for your email on what that webinar will be about. And Chris, I will let you close out.
Again, thank you all for your time today. Hopefully it was valuable for you. If my contact information is here, it'll also be in the follow-up that we send to you. So please feel free to reach out if you have any interest in this, or have any questions, or whatever, you just want to chat about it. This is what I'm passionate about. So thank you again. With that, we'll